we're back with another episode of the Abraham Watkins podcast. I'm joined again by newly appointed partner, Jennifer Stogner. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being back on. How does it feel to be a partner now?
It's incredible. I can't believe that we're here. Abraham Watkins is obviously the oldest plaintiff's personal injury firm in Texas, and so to be one of the first female partners after 74 years is incredible. It's an honor to join Brant, Benny, and Mo, as well as Lena and Carl, in leading this firm into the next 75 years.
Great. I think Carl and Lena both said something similar, but no one expected this. It was just not out of the blue, but it was well-timed promotion of everybody. I think everybody deserved it. Everybody's been putting a lot of hard work in, a lot of great results. So congratulations formally on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Well, like I said before in the intro, this is your second time on.
That's true.
So last time you were here, you were the president of the Alumni Association for South Texas College of Law.
Yes, sir.
What did you learn? How was it?
It was wonderful. So South Texas is not only the school that I went to, it's also the school my husband went to, it's the school my dad went to. And so to have the opportunity to be president of our Alumni Association was amazing. In addition to the fact that I was president during our 100th anniversary. And so we had a large gala, and over the course of the fundraising campaign that led up to that, we raised over $1 million for student scholarships, which means a lot to me because I was a scholarship kid when I was going to law school. I had a combination of loans and scholarship awards that made it possible for me to go to law school, to meet my husband, and made the rest of this career possible for me. So it means a lot to have been able to lead our school into its second century, and also to raise money, hopefully that will make a difference in other students' lives as they pursue a career in law.
Okay. Now you were president for 1 year or 2 years?
2 years.
2 years. Ooh. So kind of stressful, not so much.
It's a labor of love. I mean, I truly do love our law school. I love the teachers that we have. I think the mission to create lawyers in Houston that are from the community, that become part of the community and serve the community is really something that everyone's passionate about, in addition to the fact that the advocacy department at South Texas means the world to both me and my husband. We won a national title when we were there. So our law school gave us so much in the way of opportunities we wouldn't have otherwise had. And we just feel like because we were given those opportunities, we have a duty and a responsibility to give back. And so that's been an honor to be part of that.
Okay. You would do it again?
Absolutely, of course.
Well, that's what matters then.
Absolutely.
Okay, so getting back to the professional career from being in law school, the past 14 months, we've had a lot of momentum going on at the firm. You've had a lot of victories. Brant's had a lot of victories. Team Stogner's had a lot of victories. What do you think the most significant victory over the past 12 to 14 months, since last time you were on, which case do you think that would be? You don't have to name names or amounts if you don't want to or if you can't, but what do you think your most significant victory would be?
Well, it's hard to say, but I would say we've had a couple of very significant settlements. One involved a gentleman who was significantly burned. Another one involved a family that lost their 7-year-old on the way to the first day of school. And so both of those stories really touched my heart. They're wonderful people. They had a terrible loss. And so being able to bring some sort of closure and some sort of justice, because neither of the events that led to those two tragedies were criminal events. They weren't the kind of thing the criminal justice system would punish. And so kind of the only way to get some sort of judgment as to that those people had wronged my clients was to get these settlements. And I know that they will make a difference for our clients and for their families long term. And that's really what makes this job worth it for me.
Awesome. Still staying on those victories. Top Verdicts has awarded Brant and yourself top 10 settlements for 2023 and 2024. Can you kind of discuss those cases a little bit of detail, so the audience can kind of get kind of what goes into the case, what kind of qualifies as a high value case, and what kind of investigation or facts need to kind of occur to get those higher settlements?
Sure. What I would say first off is that it's an honor to receive those awards, to be, part of the top 10 settlements, not only in Texas but in the United States. But inevitably, the cases that qualify are generally going to be the most tragic. They're going to be the kind of stories that when you hear them, you feel it in your heart that that person clearly was injured, that they clearly were hurt. And so in those cases, we go through and we have a full investigation team. We hire the right kind of experts. We make sure that we understand what the injuries and losses were. And it truly does take a team of people. I can't do it on my own. I need my staff. I need our team to come together to get those things done. And that's really one of the things that I'm most proud of, is I think we've built a team here on Team Stogner that works together very well, that we kind of avoid the drama. We still get to have some fun when it's time to play, but when it's time to work, we're all focused on the same goal. And I think that really makes a difference, is when you're able to work together as a team, not like one of those team, group projects where you've got the one outlier who just, shows up and says, I'm also part of the team. But you have a real team that everyone knows what their role is, everybody knows what their position is, and everybody is doing their job to their level best. I think that is how we get the kind of results we get for our clients.
Okay. So you mentioned a burn case. I know what case it is. It happened during Hurricane Harvey. What details of that case are you able to share without giving any kind of, or breaking any kind of disclosure or anything?
So we represented a gentleman who was involved in a catastrophic, it's called an arc flash explosion, and it involved some electrical equipment that had been flooded during Harvey. It remained flooded for several days, and then once the water dissipated, it remained on while still wet and flooded. And so our client is asked to interact with that equipment without knowing this brief history of flooding and continued power. He enters the room, and the arc flash actually connects with his face. And so it was a very catastrophic explosion. An arc flash explosion can have shrapnel thrown at temperatures above 30,000 degrees in that moment very quickly. And so he was catastrophically burned. He was burned all over his face. His eyelids were burned, his lips were burned, his ears were burned. He required skin grafts, essentially almost every inch of his body from his waist up. He had a very long and very traumatic term in the hospital. And so it took us quite a number of years to get to resolution in that case. But I'm proud to say that we were able to recover $65 million for him. And he is one of the nicest people in the world. At the time that this happened, he was caring for a 3-year-old child because his wife had recently passed away. And so connecting with him, realizing what he had personally been through, watching his journey to try and heal from all of this, because burns, require not only you to get rid of the skin that is burned, but then to graft on new skin, and then you have to care for that for the rest of your life, because it's not the skin that's naturally supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. And seeing him continue to raise his son, continuing to have faith that the system was going to work, being able to show him that it would and that it did, really meant the world to me. And he and his family have done some amazing things. They now have some property. They have some horses. They have a life that they could never have dreamed of. And unfortunately, it took this event to get them there. But I'm proud to say that we were part of that.
So it sounded like he had some pretty significant, expensive surgeries and medical bills. Is that kind of what goes into getting these higher amounts?
Absolutely. Like I said, if you're looking for the types of cases that lead to these very large numbers, it's going to require a truly terrible event, and more likely than not, a terrible injury or a death, because that tragedy in and of itself is kind of what the settlement is ultimately based on, or a verdict would be based on. And so in his case, he was in the ICU for about 10 weeks. He was in a medically induced coma for a significant period of time. And so, again, the worse it is, generally the higher the number will be. Mm-hmm. But if you want that higher number, you still have to think to yourself that as a person, just generally in the world, there's usually something terrible that's had to happen to you to get you there.
Yeah. So that was the 2024 top 10 settlement in the United States. For 2023, it was a child drowning where there was a chain left on the fence. Can you kind of dive into that one a little bit with the details? Because that one, obviously, it's a very sad and tragic story, but can you kind of go into, how it happened? I know there was some medical issues going on with his mom, so that's how he got out. I've heard responses from other people saying, well, why did they lock the door? Well, you're not allowed to lock the door. You're not allowed to add locks in an apartment complex.
That's true.
You can't do that. The apartment complex has to have access to your building or to your unit.
Correct.
You can't add 3 more locks. You're not allowed to do that.
Right.
So can you kind of dive into that? Because I kind of jumped ahead of you, but can you kind of dive into that case a little bit?
Sure. Again, this one involved the drowning of a small child who was able to get out of an apartment. His mom was having some, we'll call it gastrointestinal difficulties.
She had Crohn's disease, right?
She did. She did. And so she was in the restroom, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
And so she comes out, and her son is not in the living room where he had been. She immediately proceeds to run out to try and find him. And what she did not know, and what frankly nobody knew, was that the apartment complex had attempted to basically get around the statutes in Texas that require apartment complexes to have secure fences around pools. It's not new information that kids want to go and jump in a pool, whether they know how to swim or not. Right. A small child who sees a pool thinks, that's a pool, I want to play and I want to go swim. Right. And so under Texas law, in an apartment complex, you have to have a secure gated fence that requires 2 hands to unlock it and open the gate. So in this case, it had a stopper that you could pull up at the top, and at the same time, you could pull down the handle, and then you could open the gate.
With a code.
With a code as well. And so what had happened was the landscaping crew just happened to be there that day, and the landscaping crew in the apartment complex had kind of agreed that having an extra chain there would make life a lot easier for the landscaping crew. So they just, put the chain, open the gate, put the chain over, and then it would just be propped open so they could walk in and out. That's fine for when you're, doing landscaping actively, but when the landscaping crew left that morning, they didn't re-secure the gate. And it just so happened that, on that day, under those circumstances, this little boy had gotten out of the apartment and he'd walked over to the pool. And on that one day at that one time, he was able to open the gate himself. And within, 5 minutes, he was laying in the pool, unable to breathe and essentially drowning. And it was an awful case. I don't ever wish that on anyone. The death of a child is something that I have 3 children. It breaks my heart to hear any story like that, because I can only imagine what that is like, and I never wish to go through it myself. And then, so we went through the discovery in that case. We went through and did investigations. We hired pool experts to, tell the jury about what the laws and standards are in the state of Texas. And ultimately, we were able to get that case resolved. And in fact, it was the largest drowning settlement for the loss of a child. But it was, again, a tragedy, something that shouldn't have happened, something that could have been prevented, but wasn't, because people skirted the safety issues and the laws that require, safety measures to be in place.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you for touching on those stories. I know they're very heartbreaking, but for the podcast, we kind of talk about what's going on at the firm. Keeping going with the awards, though, you were recently awarded Super Lawyers again. How does that stack up with your awards? How do you feel about that? I know it's a peer nomination and voting system, so how do you feel about being nominated and voted by your peers for that award?
It's an incredible honor. To be a super lawyer is something that obviously does take recognition from your peers, and I appreciate it more than I can probably put into words. Being able to say that I am a super lawyer is something that honestly I never thought would happen, and so I'm grateful for it, truly.
So, in your experience, you've been a lawyer for quite a few years now.
Thank you.
What do you think makes a great trial attorney with the high stakes, multi-million dollars? You have to lead a team of people. You have to get experts, witnesses, depositions, mediation, all that. What do you think goes into making a great trial attorney?
One of the truest forms of being a great trial lawyer is you've just got to have the guts to do it. I mean, I think having the confidence to be able to go into the courtroom, the ability to speak to an audience. I still get nervous every time I'm in a courtroom, whether I'm in front of a judge, I'm in front of a jury. I know that I can do it, but it doesn't mean that my feet aren't shaking beneath the table, or that I don't have butterflies in my stomach before I start talking. It's a lot of preparation, honestly. It's a lot of work to get yourself prepared all the way to trial, to make sure you have the right witnesses, the right evidence, that you're presenting a story and a case that is easy to understand and easy to follow. If it gets too complicated, I would stop paying attention. I know I would. And so you've got to be able to sort through, you might have mountains of evidence, but what's the evidence that's the most important? How do we focus the case down to the key evidence that makes the point, and then we move on so that we can get to the next point that we need to prove? Honestly, I think a lot of it is also some kind of cowboy, or in my case, cowgirl mentality of, I'm capable of doing this. I'm capable of making a difference. I'm not sure how, I'm not sure when, but, I can do it. And so, I still go to the courtroom about once a week, once every other week, and I still feel nervous. I think that's a big asset, is you never let it go. Don't ever get too cocky or too confident. You still need to feel those butterflies in your stomach to be good at what you do and to present an argument the right way.
Okay. And kind of going off of that, what do you think differentiates good case prep versus great case prep? What separates it? Because there's a lot of personal injury attorneys in the city, and I'm sure they're all capable of trying a case, but we do kind of try to brag that we get the bigger cases, so who you hire matters. Bring your cases to us. So good versus great.
Well, I think it's the same thing from the movie Waiting. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. And I think that that's what we try to bring, is we try to bring that little extra. We have been doing this for 74 years at this firm. We're the oldest personal injury firm in Texas. Knowing that history, knowing that we have been, presenting these types of cases since 1951, we know how to present things in a way that is easily understandable, that makes the negligence or gross negligence of the defendants very clear, and then we're able to explain how the injuries occurred and why the damage either to the person or to their family is so devastating. And so lots of lawyers can go in and ask questions in depositions, they can ask questions in trial, but are they asking the right kinds of questions, the questions that lead to either that aha moment or that lead to that moment of, wow, that is painful, that really would be awful. I think that's the difference between good and great, that little extra. And I think at Abraham Watkins, and specifically with our team, that's what we bring every day for our clients. We want to make a difference in their lives. We are a family business on Team Stogner, and we try to treat them like family. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Okay, and then after you've done your great preparation, how do you know when a case should go to trial, and we try and get a verdict as high as we can, or if we should just settle? How do you know?
That's a great question. I get lots of questions about, well, what is my case worth? Or, how's this ultimately going to end? And the answer, quite frankly, is it depends. It depends on each individual case. It depends on what the injuries are, what the damages are, what exciting factors may have happened to lead to the incident. Like, for example, if it's a 18-wheeler driver who doesn't even have a commercial driver's license, I would consider that to be an additional factor that might inform on the value of the case. More significant injuries would also inform on the value of the case. At the end of the day, it's our job to present all of these things to either a mediator or to a judge and jury. But at the end of the day, it's a decision that our client makes as to whether or not they take a settlement offer or they pursue a jury verdict. And even then, we've had a number of cases where we have been in trial, a jury has been seated in the box, the judge is there, we're presenting evidence and witnesses, and yet a settlement is reached mid-trial. And so it just depends on the facts of the case, what injuries and damages are, what the facts are, and then ultimately whether or not the client wants to accept it.
Okay. And how would you say you prepare mentally for trial? Because I know it's stressful. I stress watching y'all, and I know y'all are like in it. So how do you prepare yourself to do it and do it multiple times a year?
I think genuinely, I think it's a belief that, we know how to do it, we can do it. I have spent some time in the restroom before I've had to go give an opening statement and felt nauseous and looked at myself in the mirror and told myself, we've been here before. There's nothing to worry about, but I can't help myself. It matters to me. It matters to me that what I'm about to do will affect a family, will affect how this case comes to resolution. So mentally, I think it's more just you have to live in the moment. You have to have faith in the preparation that you've done, faith in the skills that you've honed over the years. And then, quite frankly, at the end of the day, before I ever stand up to do something in court, I say a prayer of just like, please God be with me, please guide my words. And then usually that's about the time that the judge looks at me and I have to stand up and say, may it please the court, and we go from there. So it's a constant battle, but I think it's ultimately grounded in faith. If you believe you've worked hard, you've done the job, and that God will be with you, I think that that's generally the key to the right kind of presentation.
Okay. So what are some common misconceptions about personal injury trial attorneys?
I think the most common misconception is that we're ambulance chasers. I can tell you I've never chased an ambulance. I'm not that fast to begin with. I think another common misconception is that every single personal injury lawyer in Houston has a billboard and a catchy nickname named after some sort of tool or, something like that. I think, quite frankly, the way that our firm has built its reputation has been word of mouth. We hope that what we offer you is good customer service, that we represent you in your time of need, and hopefully we do a good enough job for our clients that if they know someone who also gets hurt, that they would send them our way. But you're not going to see a billboard from Abraham Watkins. We are not going to be showing up in the commercials during your morning newscast. We're not going to show up in the commercials while you're watching the Rockets or the Texans or the Astros, because that's not our brand. Our brand is that we offer good customer service, and we hope that what we've offered to this community for the last 74 years speaks volumes on its own, and we don't have to come up with catchy nicknames or stand on the top of an 18-wheeler truck in order to get your attention.
Okay, I agree with all that. I think that's okay. I won't say anything, but I agree with all that. Now, like I said, you've been an attorney for a couple years now. As a mentor and as a mentee, how do you think having a mentor helps you as far as being a trial attorney, and how do you think being a mentor to younger attorneys, because we have a few junior associates now, and every time I go out, they're like, "You work with Jennifer Stogner? Oh, I love her. She's such a badass." I'm like,
that's very sweet.
Oh, you'd be surprised how many female young attorneys I come in contact with just look at you. They don't know. I don't think they've ever met you, but they just look up to you from afar. So how do you think that makes you feel? And then how do you think your mentor when you were younger helped mold you?
It feels awesome when I hear people say nice things. I honestly, I wish that they'd come up and talk to me and we could, really have a conversation.
No, they're intimidated. They're like, "Oh my God!" Like,
I'm actually not that scary in real life.
Person.
I can promise you, I'm not that scary. But I do understand that. I had one of my mentors when I was a very young lawyer was Lou Black, and she worked at the firm that I started out at, and she had a very intimidating aura to me. When I was finally like, I really look up to you. I'd really love some advice on, how to succeed in this business. She was very open and very kind, but it took me as a 1 or 2 year lawyer, probably 6 months to a year before I got up the gumption to just go and have a conversation with her, because she seemed like, she had everything together, and she seemed like she wouldn't have the time of day for me. And she was wonderful. She was absolutely wonderful. And so what I would probably tell younger lawyers is, reach out, be prepared to have a conversation. The worst thing that can happen is, you don't get what you want out of the relationship, but be bold enough to go ask for advice, be bold enough to say, "Hi, this is my name." Quite frankly, the first time some of the older lawyers who I really looked up to actually, walked into a room and knew who I was, and I didn't have to introduce myself again, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, they actually know my name. It really warmed my heart. So get out there, take advice from everybody, ask questions from everybody. You may not use it all, but ask. Take as much in as you possibly can, and then figure out who you're going to be as a lawyer. Just because someone else does something some way doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Figure out what your own way of asking questions, practicing law, what your persona is that you're comfortable with. Don't sell someone else's goods. Sell it your way. Be authentic to who you are.
Okay. It's good advice for a young attorney. I know you said last episode you said your father was an attorney, so that kind of made you want to be an attorney.
Absolutely.
Was there a specific moment, though, that was like an aha moment that really made you want to be a personal injury trial attorney?
Yeah, so I was actually hit by a drunk driver head on when I was 20. It was a very difficult experience for me. And so I realized that while the drunk driver got punished for the DWI that he'd committed, that was good for generally everyone in our community to get him off the road. It really didn't make me whole for the injuries that I'd had at the time. I was fairly injured, in the accident. I won't go into all of that, but it was a very difficult process. And so I'd always wanted to be a lawyer, but up until that moment, I hadn't really thought, well, this is exactly the kind of law I'm going to practice. And so when I was hurt and I needed help, I got the assistance of a lawyer who was very good and was very helpful to me in that time. And I thought, this is something that I could do. This is something where when people get hurt because someone else does something wrong, it makes me feel like I can help, I guess, right the wrong. We have a criminal justice system that works on its own, but when you're injured and hurt, you hear a lot of the, oh yeah, whatever, it's just a car wreck case. But people get significantly injured, and until it happens to you or happens to someone that you love, you don't always put that in perspective. And so I was 20 years old at the time, and he hit my car so hard I spun around and was facing traffic the other direction. And for a good number of days, I was not okay. And it changed my whole world because I was going out to dinner that night with friends. I mean, I was thinking we were just going to have a Saturday night. And it was, like my life turned left for a while. And so having the help of a personal injury attorney for me at that time made a difference. And so that's what I strive to do for others, is make a difference when they're at their worst because of something someone else did to them.
Now, were you an undergrad at this point, or you were?
I was an undergrad.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, as an attorney now, today, what advice would you give your younger self, as still in law school, maybe, or just coming out of law school? Say, self.
The advice I'd give to myself is to enjoy the little things along the way. When I first started practicing law, I was so focused on trying to make sure that everything was right, that, I had done everything right. And there were several years there where I didn't always stop to enjoy the moments, the small victories along the way. And I really wish that I had, because you don't get them back. And so I wish that I had taken more time to, fully enjoy when we had a good victory as a young lawyer, instead of being like, okay, we got a victory, back to the office, do the next thing. I wish I'd taken some time to really and truly live in that moment. And so I try, now that I have kids, I try to truly do that, to embrace the moment, to just live in the moment, put the phone down, not worry about what else is going on, but just live and be in that moment so that I have my own memory of it, not just, a video or a photo on the camera reel. I need those too. Yeah. I love those too. But I want to make sure that I'm actually present and I'm not just sitting there trying to film it or capture it for later on.
Yeah, I understand that. And how do you find balance now? Work-life balance. What do you do to get away, to relax? What do you kind of do?
So I generally focus all of my free time outside of the office on my family. I mean, I spend time with my husband, with our 3 kids. My dad is now, last week he turned 77. And so I'm focused on being present and in the moment with them. Our kids now are 13, 12, and 10 next week. And so I know that the time that they're going to be in our home, under all of them under the same roof with us, is finite. And so I'm doing my best to make sure that I'm there to, enjoy family movie night, that I'm there for making Christmas cookies, that, we have our own adventures in the time that we have, because I know that time is precious.
Okay, and then, that is very true. And I think about it now that they're a little older, but.
Yeah, I got one that's almost he's going to start high school in a year and a half, and I'm going,
what happened?
How did that happen?
You were just 3.
I remember you when you were this big, and I could hold you basically with one arm, and now he's taller than me. It's awful. I object strenuously.
He's big. He's big.
He is, I know.
What do you hope, now that you're a partner now, you've kind of not reached the pinnacle of the career, but you've kind of ascended. Now, what do you hope is in the next chapter of your career? What do you hope to achieve next?
I mean, honestly, I just hope to continue to help people. I hope that when a client comes to us in their hour of need, that we are the ones that make a difference. I can't help them medically. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I don't know how to do those kinds of things. But what I do know how to do is I do know how to obtain the justice that's available in the civil justice system. I know how to fight for them there. I know how to hold the bad guys accountable. We had a recent settlement in which not only were we able to get resolution for a family who had lost a loved one, but also the company committed to firing the driver who was responsible, and in fact firing his supervisor who hadn't been doing his job. He hadn't been supervising the driver. He wasn't paying attention to all of the evidence that this driver was not following good habits, that he was driving dangerously, and the dangerous indicators were increasing week by week and month over month. And so that makes me feel like I can make a difference. And I hope that that remains true. I hope that we're making a difference not only in our clients' lives, we're making a difference in our referral attorneys' lives, and we're making a difference in our community. That, that's one less driver out there who's going to be in a commercial motor vehicle that may endanger a family like yours, like mine. The most nerve-wracking thing for me is putting my kids in the car every day, because I worry that something will happen. Because normally we're safe at home, right? Normally we're safe within the confines of our house, but we've got to go to school and we've got to go to work. And I know, living in Houston for as long as I have, the most dangerous time for the vast majority of us is when we're on the roadway. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the incidence of people being on their phones and almost glued to their phones while they're driving down the road goes up more and more every day. Every time I see a driver that's either going too slow or they're kind of weaving in and out of their lane, inevitably when I actually pass that person, they're glued to their phone. And so I hope that we're sending a message to other people of put the phone down, safety first, otherwise someone gets hurt. But I hope I continue to make a difference. I hope that young lawyers will learn from what we're doing. I know we've hired a good number of young lawyers recently, and I have a lot of faith in their potential, and I hope to see them grow and see them grow into some amazing trial attorneys in the very near future.
Okay. And then lastly, what do you hope your legacy for Jen Stogner is at this firm?
I hope that people will think of me as a good lawyer. I hope that I will have helped more people than I can count. That's, at the end of the day, this job is extremely stressful. This job does, put some additional miles on you just because it's a lot to carry. But I hope that I will have made a difference in hundreds and thousands of people's lives by what we do. It matters to me being a lawyer. And when these clients come in and they're hurt, their family's hurt, they've lost a husband, a wife, a child, it's devastating to me because my husband and my children mean the world to me. They truly do. I do this job in no small part to support my family, but I do this job as well because I can't imagine my life without them. And because I know how much that would hurt me, I can only assume how devastating it has got to be for someone who's actually gone through that loss. And I've sat with clients and cried over their loss of a loved one. I've sat there and held their hand as they've told me stories, and it's personal. And so I hope that that's what people remember, is that I did take it personally, not in a bad way, but that I took it personally enough to care, to invest my time and effort to fight for them and to try to make a difference in their lives. Hopefully they'll also think I was a pretty good wife and a pretty good mom, probably better than average at least. But ultimately, I hope they'll think I was a good team member too, that I worked with the people that are on my team and not against them, that we lifted each other up as opposed to tearing each other down. I think you see that a lot in a lot of workplaces, and I hope that's not true for us. I hope that being part of a team that works together, that does their roles, makes a difference for each of our team members as well as for our clients.
All right, Jen. Well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me once again.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.